Hey everyone, welcome to a brand new episode of the You Got the Wrong Dude podcast. I'm your host, Ron Jamin. Thank you very much for tuning in. This episode going to be all about Rogue One. Some plot holes, opportunities, missed opportunities, things like that. Does contain spoilers, and my notes are all over the place, not in order or anything. Speaking of Rogue One, I watched the trailer for Andor Season 2. It comes out next month. This episode is being recorded on March 3rd, 2025. And it's interesting because the first season did so well, yet what took almost 3 years for this season? I mean, you could argue the pandemic, but we also got the Acolyte and the Skeleton Crew, after the first season. Obi-Wan did okay, but anyways, season 2, the music for the trailer didn't fit, just like that smirk from Cassian at the end. That was out of place, kind of out of character. But otherwise, the series, season 2 looks really good. I like that we see Krennic returning, because in Rogue One, it's never stated that him and Krennic never crossed paths, so that could be interesting. And if you watched Andor Season 1, for me, it got really good. I think it was episode 6 when Cassian was arrested and ends up helping build parts for the Death Star. But I always thought, I think I talked about this in another podcast, maybe the Star Wars one specifically, that Krennic's rise to power would be more interesting a story for a series. Nothing against Cassian, but in Rogue One, he's like, I've been in this fight since I was 6 years old. And I'm like, okay, no need for a series. Why didn't they go way back to the beginning and just focus on that? It's like, how did he get involved at a young age? And because, Andor takes place, I believe, 5 years before the events of Rogue One. And second and final season. So even if it's a hit, it's like, that's all you're getting. It's like, why not 5 seasons? But again, there's just not much to the character. He recruits for the rebellion, and I don't feel like we've gotten a really good look at that either. But anyways, that comes out next month. And let's get into Rogue One. And again, these are in no order. So let's start at the beginning. Or no, ending. My bad. I was just kidding. So Cassian is injured. He's shot by Krennic in the data vault, and then he falls down a couple levels. How did he manage to get up to the top? You remember with Krennic and Jyn, their final confrontation? Didn't take the elevator, because that was still up at the top, because him and Jyn took that down eventually. And he couldn't climb up the same way that Jyn did, because he was in no shape to. You remember he was limping. He was shot and then fell a couple levels. Got hit pretty hard. And you remember that little air vent thing? The triangles and, the sharp edges and that. The sharp points. And you have like a 2-3 second window. I don't see him getting through that. So it's kind of like, oh, Cassian, before we head down, how did you get up here? Unless I missed something. But I can totally see him surviving that, of course. I mean, he obviously did, but how did he get up there? Next up, the Scarif shield. Why was it left open? The Rebel fleet shows up, and you figure that the Empire, they would have predicted something like that happening. So it's like, keep it closed unless we're expecting company. But I get it, for this movie, it's like we already have enough challenges. So they're just like, close the shield, now. And then, a fleet gets in, but still a great scene in that. I mean, the best aerial battle in all the Star Wars movies. I don't think anyone could top the Endor space battle, but I like both of them actually a lot. So maybe the top 2. This was an opportunity, because obviously you don't want to mess with the continuity, but at the end, when Vader and the stormtroopers, they walk out in that last doorway area, and they see Leia's ship taken off, an opportunity, like, he starts to force pull it in and struggles. Now, obviously, he can't catch it and destroy it, because this leads right into A New Hope. So, obviously, you can't mess with that. But just have a moment where he starts to pull the ship in, and then we cut to Leia, just that blank stare. And then Vader lets the ship go, and we see the stormtroopers. Obviously, you can't see how they react, but they just turn to Vader like, WTF, bro, what happened? Vader feels a connection to someone on that ship. He's obviously not yet aware that Leia is his daughter. But that just throws him, off balance, and he's like, whoa, what was that? And lets the ship go. And something like that. I just thought it was an opportunity. And what's in there, it doesn't ruin anything, but just an idea that I had. And when I first watched Rogue One, I thought, why didn't Galen Erso, Jin's dad, in that video message to Saw and potentially Jin, because he didn't know if she was still alive, why didn't he just say, like, you and your friends fly to the end of the trench on the Death Star, there's a little hole, fire in there. And then it wasn't until recent viewing I realized, oh, well, if the Empire, if they intercepted that message, they'd know where the flaw is, so they just go, like, hey, you guys got any boards, any wood boards, or, hey, grab that plank over there. Let's cover up this hole. So I was like, okay, that makes sense. And again, for a movie, for a struggle, it's like you have to have our heroes get the plans and then figure out what to do. The Kyber crystals. Not a big topic in the movie, but I like what we learned about them. And part of me wishes that Kyber crystal that Jin had on her necklace, maybe that could have created some kind of a force field. Yeah, force, pun intended. To protect her and Cassian at the end from that explosion. But that moment is so beautifully done, though. It's so tragic, because it's like, if they did fall in love, imagine they would have had great kids, or just been the best of friends and that. But that's something you want to leave it alone. But at the same time, it's like, what if, And I thought there'd be more of a purpose with that necklace, more than just the family connection in that. They didn't really do anything with it. Like, maybe that could access the master switch, which we'll get to. And actually, that's next on here. But just something more of a plot device in that. But the master switch, just like them leaving the shield open, it's like, okay, somebody was on break and they forgot to close it. I can buy it. But the master switch, it's outside, no shield, no cover. And again, we already have a lot to do in this. Even them getting the signal out to the rebellion. When that one character is explaining it, like, I need to run this to there, but you need to open the shield. We can broadcast a signal. We have to get the satellites aligned and all that. And it's like, okay, that's enough exposition. But master switch, you think, is it like a big switch? It's actually a lever, as they would say. And it's like, okay, oh, it's right over there. Are you sure? That's just one console over there. And that one's just a little too easy. I mean, I love the scene. Again, Donnie Yen's character, dodges the fire and goes, and the music is just so beautiful. But it's also like, are you sure that's it? Why would it be outside? Let's see. This was an opportunity, but this is more like an alternate ending. We'll talk more about that because, the third act was pretty much reshot, I believe. But if they wanted to save Jin and Andor, they probably could have used Krennic's ship to escape. If they knew about it and where it was, of course. Here's one. This is, to me, kind of a plot hole. But then again, like, I only noticed this upon last viewing of the entire movie. The inspection on Scarif when our heroes arrive. So the Empire, they have to inspect the ship. So two stormtroopers enter the ship. Neither of them exit. And notice I said neither of them. The suits don't exit. Because Jin and Cassian are wearing uniforms that don't match what went in. And we have our K2SO, of course. But nobody else noticed this? Not viewers, but, the other forces around. And why not use the stormtrooper uniforms? Have more heroes trying to infiltrate, a different part or something. Again, doesn't ruin anything, but kind of a plot hole, because I don't know if something went wrong with the editing or what. On the planet Edu, when they try to call off the attack of, the X-Wings taking out the base and that, says, Sir, they've already started, And it's like, well, tell them to stop. I don't understand what the struggle was. Like, they've already engaged. It's like, okay, call it off. But again, I understand certain things need to happen in this movie. Some just for dramatic purposes. But at the same time, it's like, well, they didn't lose comms. Unless I'm wrong about that. But, like, tell them to stop. Another opportunity, and this is just like when I was talking about Andor and Krennic, the rise to power and how they became what they became. Galen Erso, did he volunteer for the Empire to help build the Death Star? Was he recruited? Was he forced? Because obviously he walked away and just like Luke just chose a planet and started a family, but how did they find him? Maybe they'll... I don't know. It depends on the timeline in that of season 2 of Andor, but he chose some planet. It's like, was there a map to it? But who left it? Just like in the sequel trilogy, we never learned about that map beyond its existence. It's like, well, did Luke leave it? Why would he leave a map to himself? Who made it? Why was it in separate parts? Like, it just doesn't make sense. Fun fact, Tony Gilroy created the Andor series and also directed or co-directed reshoots on Rogue One. And I bring that up because I think it was, 2 Decembers ago, I believe, like the end of 2023, Gareth Edwards, who directed Rogue One, said that he was present for all the reshoots on Rogue One. So I imagine this is like a studio conflict where they say the third act, maybe it's just not working for whatever reason. When you watch the first trailer for Rogue One, most of it is not in the final film, which is interesting. Because I don't miss anything like, this is a rebellion. I rebel. It's like, is she trying to be funny or what is this? Like some things didn't work, and so I can understand that, but who knows how much of it was reshot? Because they talk about the third act mostly and stuff that I've read, but it seems like a lot of it was reshot or they just used different takes, whatever it was, because it's like, it's not a movie that needs comedy. It's so beautiful, so well done, all the way through. And that can be difficult because how many of the Star Wars movies would you watch from beginning to end that you've seen before? Like me, it's all about the action. Because when you look at the movies and it's like Star Wars A New Hope, it's very light, uplifting. I mean, even the title, A New Hope. And it's, the genesis for everything. And then Empire is just dark and not disturbing until the end, of course, but it's like, whoa, this took a turn, and I love it. And then Return of the Jedi, it's kind of like, okay, so we're going to have these little teddy bears help defeat the Empire, with rocks and sticks, and it's like, well, they're certainly not killing the stormtroopers. And, well, just like with any of the movies in that, when we, quote-unquote, defeat the Empire, it's like, well, if you kill the Emperor, you take the head off a snake and that, it's like, well, it's not like all the forces shut down like in the Phantom Menace when all the robots on the Imperial side, when those shut down, when you take out those ships, like that works for that, but what about all the humans spread across, the universe and that, galaxies? But, geez, what point was I making? But anyways, as far as it being rewatchable, and with me, it's like, okay, movie made over $1 billion at the box office, Rogue One. So Gareth and Gilroy, let's get them back together. I hope they work on more projects. Star Wars. Kind of like James Gunn getting, I believe he has creative control over the DC movieverse. Good luck. I mean, I saw the Superman trailer and it's like, yep, seen it before. Not great CGI, but okay. But just like the Russo brothers, when they got Winter Soldier, Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame. And everything's easy to follow. It's all building up, to the Endgame. And I'd like to see Gareth and Gilroy, maybe they could do a new trilogy or do Rogue Squadron. Because Patty Jenkins, speaking of the DC movieverse, her Rogue Squadron movie was supposed to come out in 2023, I believe. But Wonder Woman 84 kind of tanked, at least review-wise. And everything's just being rebooted now. DC and Star Wars, pretty much. Star Wars, I'm not sure what they're going to do, but point being, it's kind of like, well, the production for Rogue One, it just didn't go as planned, and we had all these reshoots, and I'm like, but what came out of it was gold. Arguably one of the best Star Wars movies out there. For me, like I said, the best. Now, I've seen them all numerous times in that, but this one, it just takes it to a whole nother level. It's like a greatest hits almost. But we'll see what happens. Because some people, it's like you direct a movie and it's just like, well, I had all these notes and then they wanted it edited differently and just doesn't work out. So we'll see. But yeah, season 2 of Andor, I am curious how much of a role Krennic is going to play in that. And I'm excited. Ben Mendelsohn, I loved him in that Robin Hood movie. His performance, that whole movie just didn't work. Like, he had a great cast, but them trying to blend, even that clothing, it's like, it's not even modern. It just didn't work. It's kind of like stuff they wore in the 80s that they thought we'd be wearing. You get that kind of Blade Runner vibe, if that makes sense. Almost Dune. You're kind of like, these outfits don't really match, and yet when it's in a medieval setting. But I loved him as, he played the sheriff of Nottingham. But he's a great actor. Very brief role in The Dark Knight Rises. It's hard to tell because he could do different accents, which I like. Where is Bane? Where is he? Speak of the devil and he shall appear. Anyways, that's it for my notes. Let me know what you think. Leave some comments. You can download this episode for free. Like it up. Share it. Subscribe for more. And I'll be doing a review of Season 2 of Andor. So I'm looking forward to it. Not pumped about it. Because the first season, it started out where Andor, he's a criminal, he's wanted. Another plot with his sister. And then him trying to get a device. It seemed like the first episode had a lot going for it. But I'm sure Season 2 will wrap up everything. But yeah, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. Check out my past podcast episode. It's called Everything Star Wars. And thanks for listening. And I will see you next time.